Welcome to the C45 Association's official YouTube channel. The following presentation is brought to you with support from Sigma Analytical Services with the C45 Association. Sigma Analytical is the only cannabis lab with cross-continental operations in the world and the first cannabis-focused GMP certified lab in Canada. Our service goes beyond a full panel of testing and also covers stability studies, cleaning validation, formulation and product development support, and more. We have been a front runner in testing Cannabis 2.0 products and have validated methods for vape cartridges and a variety of edibles, topicals, and beverages. Sigma is also Shoppers Drug Mart's partner in medical cannabis by Shoppers and Ecolab's exclusive partner in Canada and South America to run cleaning validation studies for cannabis processors and producers. Our short and dependable turnaround times, in addition to accurate and reliable results and outstanding client support, has made Sigma the preferred lab for many LPs. Sigma also offers support on consulting projects for the producers and labs in Canada, Colombia, the US, and beyond. From method development, validation, and transfer, to support for designing, setting up, and running in-house or independent cannabis labs. For any questions or to start a discussion on how we can assist you, please don't hesitate to contact us. We hope you enjoy the following presentation, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more quality content.
Hi, and thanks for joining us. I'm your moderator, Samantha McLajeski. This discussion will focus on micro-cultivation entrepreneurship. We're all aware micro-cultivators are a unique kind of entrepreneur. They face significant challenges with a barrier to entry, regulatory red tape, and rigid financial ceiling. We're here with 3 Canadian micro-cultivators to share their successes, challenges, and lessons. Today, we're speaking with Ashley Athill, CEO and co-founder of Harvester, Kylie Boudry, CEO of Parkland Flower and founder of ACMLA, and Tim Millay, CEO and co-founder of Alberta Bud Inc. Thanks for joining us. All right, I'm really excited to be here with you all, and we'll dive right in. So, our first question for each panelist is, what unique value proposition do you as a micro-cultivator use to differentiate yourself in the market?
Thanks again for having me. Really appreciate being here. So at Harvester, we're really focused on providing our customer with a fantastic genetic selection. We want to make sure that our value proposition sits in the market as we bring in about 2,500 different cultivars. We want to satisfy our consumers' palate and provide them with variety so that they are able to enjoy their cannabis. We're really excited to bring out strains, Great Marmalade, Hardo Bread, and many others from different parts of the world.
Awesome. Kylie, your unique value proposition, what are you offering?
Hi everyone, Kylie Boudry. We are mainly focused right now on seed production. We are bringing a lot of unique genetics to the marketplace in the form of seed rather than as flower for home growers, medical growers, as well as B2B markets. We really feel that home growers kind of got left behind in early recreational legalization. If you look on any of the provincial websites, there are very few companies that are doing genetics. It is a risky business. It's when you have pollen in these types of facilities, and so a lot of LPs have kind of stayed away from that. And we dove right in. We really love breeding, putting 2 plants together, finding something that's stable, that we love, that can be easy for people to grow, and really we're here for the grower. That's the biggest thing we love about what we're doing right now, and watching folks grow our genetics is such a joy.
That's great. So genetics, top of the list. And Tim, what's Alberta Bud's unique value proposition?
Yeah, I'd agree with Ashley. Bringing good genetics into the facility is a critical part of being a micro cultivator, and having the day one exception where we're allowed to bring in genetics from the unlicensed market is a big advantage there. And so we have to take advantage of that by bringing in as many different types of strains as possible. To allow for future differentiation in strains and changing with the consumers' tastes as those change. For Alberta Bud, we are focused primarily on the craft local market. So we're located in the city of Edmonton, and we're focused on serving the rec market in Edmonton and Alberta. We operate an indoor grow facility, and we use a fair bit of technology to try and produce the best quality flower that we can. So we use LED lights from an Edmontonian company called G2V Optics, and those allow us to customize the spectrum as well as the intensity of the light that we give to the plants. And we grow in a vertical arrangement, so we have multiple levels of plants stacked on top of each other. And the LED lights are fairly unique in being able to pull some really high terpene counts off of genetics, where we haven't been able to do that before with high pressure sodium lights. So that's kind of the way that we're trying to differentiate ourselves here in the Albertan market.
That's super interesting. I haven't heard of too many other cultivators manipulating cultivars using various levels of spectrum. So that's pretty cool. All right. Well, if I'm a micro cultivator, my takeaway from that is don't underutilize your declaration, and find some very specific way to offer the market something very unique. All right, so question number 2 for our lovely panelists. Many micro cultivators I've worked with are carrying the workload of several full-time employees. However, we all have to decide when to invest in help. My question is, which existing talents have you leaned into? Which did you lean away from and decide to outsource to employees or contractors, and why?
I'll start off with that one. I come from a oil and gas background in regulatory compliance. I was an occupational health and safety advisor to management for about 7 years, and I was able to utilize that skill when we first started out with licensing, and that is, that obviously is your number one step, really in getting to, aside from construction of your site, to getting in. So I was able to really lean into that experience that I had. As we got into operation, that's when I started leaning out of that and hiring a QAP that could take over the administration of that, so I could focus more on business development, revenue generation, getting to market, and of course, right in the beginning with construction and things like that, I'm not an electrician or anything like that. So we did have to hire those types of folks. But for the most part, we did a lot of things ourselves. We wear multiple hats nonstop. And as you get to revenue, you can start hiring those folks and taking some of those more administrative duties or cultivation tasks off your plate.
Yeah, and I guess for us, when we were deciding how to build our team at the beginning, we were looking for diversity in skill set. So our founders include a lawyer, an accountant, an HVAC technician, and an electrician, as well as our grower. And so we were really focused on having a team that would have complementary skill sets and trying to get everybody involved right from day one of construction. So we built out our facility ourselves primarily. And I think that's been a major advantage for us just in operating the facility, because we know how it was constructed and why. And also when we were building the facility, we were able to catch some things that we were doing that might not have been very efficient, because we ourselves are the ones operating it. So I think having a strong hand in the construction of the facility with the team that's going to operate it is a really useful advantage if we can find that. I'd also say outsourcing the initial SOP development is a really good idea, spending some money there, and then customizing those SOPs to your facility. There's quite a few boilerplate type facility or SOPs out there for micro facilities. And I'd say that was a good use of our resources, and then we just customize those to our unique situation, and also having a consultant just opine on the floor plan. So we design the facility for flower production is what we do, and we just ran that floor plan by a consultant, and so there's opportunities to not fully engage a consultant to do everything. But maybe just to fill in some of the pieces where you might not have experience or knowledge. That was one way that we sort of outsource some of those tasks.
Tim brings up a good point regarding the consulting piece. I know that for people who are coming into this space right now, that's one of their main leads. We didn't go that route, to be quite honest with you. I've been in this game for a while that I've become my own consultant. So going and networking with people, networking with the consultants, man, you learn a lot. So that also saves on costs, right? So I guess if we're leaning in, let's start. If one wants to really get into this industry, you got to lean into your network. You got to lean into getting this information so you can do it yourself, right? And I thought that that's a very valid point. Also, just for us, I don't have a background in finance. I have a background in mental health. So outsourcing some of my financials and working with my financials advisors have really allowed us to get a very broad scope of how we're going to go about building revenue and obtaining revenue, and then when those times will happen. So I that is one partnership that is very important to any business, whether it be in-house or whether it be out-house. But for us, we did outsource that as well. Our QAP, our quality assurance person, was also outsourced, and she does work with us on a full-time basis. So that's something that we've had to lean out towards. Taxes, but most of the time we're overseeing regulatory compliance, and as well business development and revenue trying to come in. So yeah. Those are some of the things that I've had to outsource and insource within our business.
And I'll touch on one other point. Before I was in oil and gas, I did a lot of sales, a ton of sales. I came from a sales background, and that's something that is way later on in your process, but it's something that should be forefront of mind. There's one thing about growing a product, then there's one thing about building a brand, but then there's another thing is executing on sales. And, you want to look ahead on, am I hold to a processor that is going to have a sales team themselves and they're going to help you market and brand your product? Or are you going to be moving product yourself? Or, are you going to be tolling and have them put their product out? So these are some key things that once you start getting into operation, it's not something people think about until they actually get to harvest, until they actually get a product made. And they're, so I really lean on my sales abilities. But again, then that spreads you thin. So it's, you got to start looking at, well, am I going to hire an agency or am I going to hire an in-house salesperson? So those are also some things that are more to the end of the process, but you should be thinking about that in your initial plans as well. Like, how are you getting this product to market?
That is one of the most important things right there. Absolutely. Yep. I do want to also mention, just because of the importance of it, it's the marketing side of things. Yeah. We've done our social media in-house thus far, and we're now moving out and trying to get social media, a manager or coordinator to work with us. That is a full-time job within itself. So it's something to also take into consideration, for outsourcing help.
Right. Kylie's already in the market selling her products. And I know that Ashley and Tim, I know both of you are expecting product to hit shelves. Tim for Alberta Bud, June, Ashley, August. Do you two already have formed sales channels? Are you ready to hit market?
Yeah, basically the way we do it is we just have one of our team members who's our head of sales go and basically develop relationships with retail stores and just make them aware of our existence. And then it's basically just about building that for us in the Edmonton area and Alberta. So we're focused primarily on that market and that group of people. And yeah, our product should be on shelf in June. So I agree with Kylie. It's, like you should be thinking about this certainly before the first harvest. But it's kind of challenging too, because you don't have your certificates of analysis until that first harvest. And it's such a critical piece of this entire industry is what those numbers say. So as much as you can do before that first harvest, do it, and have a plan if the certificate comes back under 20, because it's going to be a different play. It would be my advice there.
I think that's a great piece of advice. I would actually grow your plant first, or while you're growing, get a COA, and then, work while you're building your facility. That's what we did. So we kind of know what we were coming to the market with. But if we're talking about business channels, we actually did go B2B. We've been licensed since October 9th. So we've had a couple of transactions on that side too. And even though it's not as glamorous and it's not as, I would say, profitable, to be quite honest, having the ability to utilize that to step on, to get to B2C was our strategy. And, it worked for us, and we have the ability now to move into other spaces. So there are different ways that you can go about this. It doesn't have to be one way. And if you need that leg up, I think that's a really great strategy.
Nice. I like that all three of you are in slightly different places, but really, really making your unique situation work. It's good advice. All right. So we're going to move on to our next question. So are there areas of your business where you wish you would have invested more or less capital? If so, where would you have achieved cost savings, and where would you have better spent those funds?
Well, I'd say you can never have enough HVAC equipment for dehumidification. There's always going to be more dehumidification needs. So that's one area where I would say expect to spend more than you plan right now.
Ashley?
As I mentioned before, my brother has I didn't mention this, but my brother and my business partner, Michael Affil, he has a construction background. So we were able to build this vertical grow space that we were in, but we decided to move from the pots to gutters. And we were able to do that because we want to utilize the sea of green technique, so that we could have smaller plants and just focus on top nugs. So we spent a lot by making that change in the actual operation. So by doing that, I wish, that we came to the forefront with the gutters rather than the pots. But if we did that, then I would have gotten different equipment that would help us. So, for example, a smaller scissor lift, which allows us to get up to the top of our canopy. Small things like this can really make a difference. So that's why it's so important with regards to the operations and how you're doing it to plan it properly. There's always going to be pitfalls, but it just happens. But, you have to think ahead, and you have to learn from other people's mistakes too.
I think on our side of the operation, because we have 8 small grow rooms, and we had prefabricated pods, but they're basically 8 secans. And we had 8 prefabricated secans, and they came with all the equipment and all that kind of stuff. And as we went through, we weren't super happy with the way the racking was, or the way the way our grow style was, didn't really work with the prefabricated equipment that came with it. If we had had our time back, we would have opted out of all the internal equipment that came with them and just got the shell with the HVAC and whatnot. And then we would have put in exactly what we wanted. Now we're kind of slowly transitioning each room out, changing out equipment, which affects your harvest schedules and timing and whatnot. And, which is fine. It's all a learning curve, and but there's again, right back to planning. A lot of times it's capital constraints. I bet you there's not one person in this room that had an easy time finding capital. I'm sure we all did things creatively. I refinanced my house to get the seed money to do this, and so you do things on the cheap in the beginning because you have to. And as you get into revenue and you learn and you grow and you decide then, okay, what are the things that are going to save me time, whether it's automating your watering system, right? Like we're hand watering from the start. We hand watered for the first few months, right? Which is a lot of labor, right? It's a ton of labor, but that's what you have to do. At the beginning. And then, like looking, well, I have these milestones of revenue I'm going to bring in. How much am I going to put that into optimizing my space and optimizing my people power? So lots of learnings, and a lot of it is not stuff that consultant, I think as the industry develops, these consultants are coming from large scale facilities, and everybody's little tiny facility is so different. Like that's what I love about this space, is that I've been into so many micro facilities now, and they're unique. They're almost like people, like in that or a fingerprint. Like they are the style of the team that built it and put it together, which is what's so amazing about it. And so that it's as unique as the cultivars we grow, and we're all learning together. This is such a new industry, and we're going to get to pass these learnings on through forums like this. That's one of the reasons that we started the Alberta Cannabis Micro License Association. Tim's on my board, and we share these learnings because we believe that a collaborative approach betters the whole industry as a whole, not just for individuals. Off my soapbox now.
Just that point of time and money, it's like you're always balancing between those two things. So you can always spend money to get something done that you can do cheaper with your time. But yeah, it's about balancing all of those things and making sure you're being able to achieve everything that you have to keep the place going, and not letting sanitation slide, and because it's the last thing everyone wants to do, but it's so important, and it tends to get put on the back burner. And I'd say the other thing is, like, there's a lot of advantage in kind of like slowly growing into your facility and intending on it, like knowing that it's going to change. And so, like, for us, we have two 50 light rooms, that have two levels in each room. And so we just started with one room to have two levels to see how we wanted to do it, how the air movement would be affected. I would guess that almost anybody who's going to start a micro hasn't operated any facility of that size before, would be the most common situation. So if you haven't done it before, expect that you're going to be changing it, and plan for that. And I think that's a good way to do it, because then you don't spend all the money up front for something that you're going to have to change anyway. So those baby steps and kind of just doing things incrementally and then iterating on what you've learned, I'd say is a really useful way to do it.
Nice. I would say, the summarization of all of that excellent advice that you just gave is expect change, work within your budget, and strategically plan those changes in phases based on your financial milestones. And Yeah, I think that's great advice to the budding micro cultivator. Thank you for that. All right, so next question. Let's see here. When seeking sales channels, what outlets, be it general or specific, are you finding success with, and where are you facing the most resistance or friction? Kylie, would you care to start?
Sure. I kind of go off of Tim's point of being local and really, like he's kind of sticking to his Alberta market and his Alberta. And that is one thing about Alberta. Like Albertans love Alberta made products. They just do. That's a thing. And that's like any place really. So really, I really approach sales as I go to all of our retailers and keep up with our retailers that are in our general vicinity. And I'm starting to slowly grow that, and we have started moving into other provinces. That starts to become really challenging when your product is in a different province. How do you keep that story and that brand story alive, and now you're going in more of a Canadian story as opposed to a provincial story. One of the biggest challenges I find are the corporate retail stores. The very, very large entities that are publicly traded, they are difficult to get into as a small producer. Trying to get in front of some of these folks. You're little. Some of them do have pay to play models, even though they're not supposed to. And that is challenging as well. I have looked at, we've moved into a medical channel, which is great. Again, you're relying on this company to do some marketing and branding. And if they're not pushing your brand for you, you have to be doing it yourself. So there are quite a few challenges. The retail space is cutthroat right now as well. So if you're competing on price, like where, with regards to your pricing, if you're coming out with this craft product that's a premium price, you need to find those retailers that know how to sell craft premium product, because, these bigger retail chains that are more like, the Walmarts of weed. And that's, everybody needs that too. You need to have those types of channels as well. And they will carry high value product. But you need, if you're having small batches, you maybe want to start really focusing on those small retailers. I think that's making those relationships and knowing that your product's going to go into their stores. That's also challenging, because in the provinces, you have no idea who bought your product. Like in Alberta specifically, they tell you how many cases you sold. And that is the extent of the information that you get. Yeah. Yes, it's very challenging. So then you get consumers, right? You don't. So the way you know is that you have to be phoning retailers and saying, hey, did you bring in a case of our product? Like, the other thing is that if you have less than a certain amount of cases on the market, you're going into a lottery system in Alberta. So that means that retailers may order your product and not get your product. So that's another thing that happens. And so it's very challenging. We're all learning how to navigate. I think it will get better. That's, and again, where the ACMLA comes in. We're the voice of these small producers. I had a lot of pre-rolls go out. This was before we were doing seeds at the same time, but we did do 2 lots of flower to see how our rooms would do with that. And I had pre-rolls accepted by the province. I had 300 or so cases. They took 100. And so my product flew out and sold out, and that was great. And then the province, ordered up some more. But there were, so many retailers that ordered my product that didn't get it. And then, as a small producer, like I don't know who tried to order it and didn't get it. So there was no way for me to follow up with them to say, hey, sorry you didn't get our product, just to let you know it's coming. There's another 100 cases coming, like, you know, so if you're not on top of that feedback channel, that funnel, it's really difficult. And again, that's where, you know, maybe utilizing a sales agency would be worth the money if you don't have an in-house sales team. So yeah, like that's definitely, if we go back to the other questions, that's where I'd spend some money for sure, is on a sales team or a sales company agency. Yeah, it's tough because when your first product goes out, when it hits the market, they actually denote. They're like, this is a new product, this is a new SKU, yay, woo, and that's how the AGLC helps you out. But if they only take 100 cases and you have 200 cases sitting in your warehouse waiting, right? The next time you put those cases out, it just goes in the lot the same as everything else. And if that retailer is not looking for it, it's very doubtful that they're going to find it in the thousands of SKUs that are on there. It's tough.
Yeah, it's great you have that experience of your oil and gas sales to kind of lead that part of your journey.
Yeah.
Ashley, what about you? How are you seeking sales channels, and where are you finding success or resistance?
Well, it seems like, thank you, Kylie, because I learned from that. Because I've only gone business to business, you know, I found that was quite successful for us. We have not yet gone to consumer or direct to the market. So I can't really speak the exact same language that Kylie is speaking, but with us, we actually used one of the platforms that is currently out there for micro producers. I believe it's Cannabis Exchange. And it was very easy, very user friendly. The the purchaser had, like, we had all of our T's crossed and I's dotted when it came to taking the product from A to B, like his location. And it was really easy. The only challenge I had was just a lack of communication. It had to be done through the portal. But that was really it. But if we're talking about our journey going B2C or actually getting to market, we right now are just in discussions with a third-party processor. And, you know, I'm a little bit frustrated by this because maybe I'm still trying to navigate through the distribution path. I've actually had the ability to have a call with the executive team at the OCS, oddly enough. And I was basically trying to tell them, listen, we are micro cultivators. We're licensed. We're here. But there needs to be some type of way we can get to market at a lesser cost than what the recall insurance is asking for us to pay. And that recall insurance is obviously there for a reason. But how are we going to have a fair and just market if I have to go through somebody else's license? Even if my label's on it, even if my brand's on it, I shouldn't have to pay the exact same thing as Aurora and Tilray or whoever. And I just found it really and don't get me wrong, listen, the way they handled it was very professional and I appreciated their time, but I didn't get the answer that I was looking for, you know? And it is frustrating. There is a way to get to market, but it's probably not how you think it's going to go, just like Kylie's saying. So you have to be flexible. You have to be resourceful. And you have to make sure that, you know, if you can't go this way, you have to have the ability to pivot the other way.
And I'll just touch on OCS does give you the data. They don't give it to you. It's a cost. They charge you for it, but there is a cost to it. But they do provide you that data. But yeah, insurance, $15 million in recall insurance is a salary. It's a salary for a cultivation tech. It's a salary for a bookkeeper. It's a salary for, you know, an administrator. Like, you know, in the literally the $75,000 a year range.
Right. But how much are we producing versus the other guys? There could be something that is
Exactly.
arranged where there's a lesser cost. But
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm not gonna go too far into it, but yeah, I just found that really frustrating.
It is. They're listening though. They're listening. They are listening.
They're listening.
And,
No,
and we have to keep, we have to keep hounding them. You count, you're writing your government, you're writing your, we like the ACMLA, we've organized, we are now an official lobby group. So we are definitely, these are things that are on our radar that we want to start pushing for with these provinces. It's
Here's the thing. I actually believe that the OCS wants to open up a micro space for micro cultivators. So I actually think that there will be traction. It just probably won't happen right away. But I think as micro cultivators,
speed of government.
Yeah, for future micro cultivators too, I think it's necessary that we all come together and have something similar to your lobbying group. But we have the ability, somewhat, to shape the policies and regulations because we're so early in the game. So why are we I'm not saying why are we not, because I think this is a great time to collaborate and talk with all of you, whether it be on a provincial level or whether it be on a federal level, but I think it's important for us to have that say and shape what is to be of this industry.
Mm-hmm. So Tim and Kylie, you're both part of the ACMLA, and that brings up a good question. Is the ACMLA working with any other associations throughout the provinces to lobby on some of these on some of this red tape that seems proportionally overwhelming to the microcultivator, or disproportionately overwhelming?
Yeah. So we're working with. We have been approached by other organizations. The Canadian Cannabis Council was one that approached us. We've had discussions with them. We, as a teeny tiny micro organization, could not afford their membership fee. We're fledgling, right? We barely have, we just got a bank account. We just got incorporated. We just registered as a lobby group. So now we need to start moving into generating some revenue through, fundraisers, membership fees, things like that. But we have been definitely approached by other cultivations, other micro cultivators across the country, multiple cultivators. We are considering doing it, doing the organization nationwide. We do work with an organization called the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, and that has been really big for us because they represent over 150,000 independent businesses across Canada in all different sectors, and they're all businesses that are of a certain size, and they have opened up what's like a cannabis file. They actually now have an administrator that speaks solely to cannabis, and we've spoken to them at length about some of the challenges we face. A lot of it is people power. We need volunteers. We need folks to come in and write content, folks to come in and help write letters and things like that. And we're really just at ground level, even though we've been an organization for almost, that's going on almost 3 years now. But anything with the word cannabis in it has been such a challenge to build, as any micro cultivator who's licensed knows. And it's the same thing on an organized association's side as well. The other challenge is keeping people on the board. As soon as a micro license holder that was on my board got licensed and they started to get into actual activities, they're like, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. And I'm also getting to that point. So we need fresh people. We need new people to come in and help us. We're going to be in the chat rooms and things like that during this event. So please come in, chat with us, bring us your voice. We need that. Yeah, like, and yeah, we definitely across Canada wide need an organization that speaks specifically to these small organizations. The Canadian Cannabis Council is great. They are fighting for the industry. But they are really leaning towards more larger producers, and that's great. We need that too. But the challenges that we face are totally unique from some of the challenges that these folks face, and so we need to really come together.
No, that's true. That's true. But Canadian Council is bringing more people, more micros on, and they're trying to focus on that. And I'm actually a member of their association, and it's been eye-opening, honestly.
Good.
The type of information that one can get from them is just amazing. So I think even if it was that, we all kind of, especially in Ontario, I'd love to reach out to more micros in Ontario and really talk to them and see what we can build, because that would be obviously a really great opportunity. I'm sorry, Tim, I'm going to stop talking.
Good, a plug for both.
Well, since we're on the topic of unique challenges that the micro cultivator faces, let's talk a little bit about the 200 square meter cap on canopy and the 600 kg cap on processing threshold. Let's start with Tim. Tim, what perspective or feedback would you like to share with regulators on the subject, or what would you focus on if you're working with these associations on developing, lobbying efforts for better policy towards the micro cultivator?
Yeah, well, it's so different for each cultivator. Are you indoor or outdoor? That canopy space restriction, I think, harms the outdoor grower more than the indoor grower, I would say, is a result of that rule. And I don't know. I mean, we were talking earlier about like what is craft, right, Ashley? And it's like, okay, well, are we going to use the license itself as the definer? Like, if you have the micro license, then that's kind of what craft is, or is craft about a process, that's going on in the facility? So I'd say as an indoor cultivator, 200 square meters of canopy space is a fair bit, right? If you're moving up from a smaller operation or having never operated before, it's a lot to bite off right there. So, I mean, it's going to keep you busy. I think there would be an advantage to being able to increase those numbers, perhaps after you've operated for a certain period of time, and shown Health Canada, that there hasn't been any problems. So, I would be open to something like that. But for anyone just starting and getting into it, it'll keep you busy. The 200 is quite a bit.
That it will. I absolutely agree with that. I like that idea, Tim, with regards to the scale increasing as you get more established in the space, which technically you can do anyways. You can go get another micro license, but within the single micro license, I feel like there should be a range, whether it be 200 meters square, all up to maybe like 500 meters square. You have that ability to make it a little bit larger. Where we're located, we're on our land. And so having that ability just to build out a certain amount rather than just adding onto it, to me, it just seems more financially sound.
I think it is a good starting point for sure if you're just getting into it. I think it does deter some people from the legacy space for moving in when they've already operated larger facilities, and like the standard, when you just look at the difference in cost, you go from a micro to a standard, your yearly fee goes from $2,500 a year to $23,000. And there's no in between, right? Like it's just like boom, boom. right? And so that 23,000 is a lot to swallow for, a license holder if they're just starting out and they come from legacy and they operated something that was larger, like a 10,000 square foot facility, that would be considered a standard, but really would be operated at a micro scale. Like with regards to compliance measures and GPP and things like that, security measures, not compliance measures, but for security measures that, I think, it's such a large jump from one to the other, fiscally, that does just deter a lot of legacy folks from moving over.
Can I ask though, like, what's the definition of craft? Because I made a bit of a controversial comment the other day, where I said, somebody asked me, am I not scared of competing with the big guys? And I said to them, well, the big guys are in the craft space, so I'm competing with them anyways. So what is craft?
Oh, so are you actually saying that you're arguing that the larger cultivators are in the craft space and that you are not in the craft space being a micro cultivator?
No, I'm not. I'm saying that the big guys have smaller subsidiary companies that are in the craft space, right?
Oh.
That I would be competing with anyways.
Oh.
So what is the definition?
Well, if you look at
OCS
OCS has a definition, right? So they're like, if you're going to be considered craft, you have to be hand trimmed, you have to be hand packaged. There can be no automated packaging. There can be no automated trimming. So they've done some of those things. Like I know that the Craft Cannabis Canada, they were basically doing a certification for craft. Like it would be something similar to say you were certified organic, you'd be certified craft. You had to be under 10,000 square feet of canopy. Outdoor was, there was certain number, like it was like an acre or something like that. Like everybody's got their own definition of craft for sure. Absolutely. I think, I think even just the unique stories of these folks, right? Like, all four of us in this room have unique stories. And we started our businesses, family run or friends run, like friends and family are running it. And you started out small and you built a story and that's craft too, so like I don't know if there's an exact definition, but I think some of those features are what makes us craft. I mean, anybody can put the name craft on a container and put it out. I know that there's lots of big folks doing it and they put craft on it. The consumer will decide if they truly believe it is craft, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, I'd say two other things that come to mind for me are, one, if the producer does everything from growing and drying the flower and packaging it as well, that to me is like a bit of an indicator, because you're taking responsibility for every step of the process all the way to the finished product that's ultimately going to be on the shelf. So that might be something to consider. And then I'd say probably ownership structure, going to that idea that Kylie was talking about the stories behind the smaller companies. Maybe independent ownership is an indice of being craft, for example.
Interesting. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, those arguments all make sense to me as well. Yeah, independence. Seeing each stage through.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Kylie?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, we're going to start seeing some things happen in the space where these small micro cultivators are going to be bought by larger companies. And so does that still make them not craft? They still utilize the same. You look at a company like Burt's Bees, right? They made lip balm. They made like all these little handcrafted products, and they got bought out by, I think, like Procter and Gamble or some other large conglomerate of healthcare or those kind of personal care products. And so does that make them not craft anymore? Maybe, probably, because their SKUs are across Canada. They're in every single store. They're mass produced. Yes. So, whether that process opens up, I think it's so early in this game. We are still in its infancy. We're like literally 3 years. We're not even 3 years old. We're 2 years old. We're a year behind recreational legalization, right? So we're like, we're really just starting. So,
Ashley, what do you think? Does that clarify craft at all, or are we still waiting on a definition?
I'm still waiting on a full definition, like an official definition. But all of you guys have essentially reiterated, and some other points that were fantastic points, but reiterated a couple of things that I had a discussion about earlier. And that was the independent structure, potentially the size of the facility, if it's vertically, if the operations are vertically integrated. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but essentially you're doing all of the operations from seed to harvest and packaging onwards. And somebody also mentioned the amount of employees that one has. And I thought that was interesting as well, just to add into that. But this is just an ongoing conversation. I don't think there has to be a definition, but I'm just interested because that allows us, the micro market, to differentiate ourselves, and I think that's important because we do put in hard work, and we shouldn't be put into the masses as just, here's a bud of weed or here's 3.5 grams or whatever. It should be like, no, these people really came from not the best of means, maybe, or maybe they came from a smaller space or a mom and pop space, and they put extra love into it. And I think that needs to be celebrated.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like the way that marketing greenwashes products, like the cannabis market, the big players are like craft washing products. All right. All right.
100%.
Well, so we're coming to the end of the hour, and I'd like to ask each one of you one more question, and that question is, if you could speak to yourself at the beginning of your journey on this path, what is the morsel of advice you'd like to give to yourself at that point?
Go for it, Tim.
I feel like you know what you would tell yourself.
Expect the unexpected. It's there's a lot of curveballs, and the industry is changing so fast that it's hard to have any level of certainty. So make peace with that.
Don't be afraid of failure. Yeah. Like, you're going to fail every day. You're going to make mistakes every single day. Brush yourself off, pick yourself up, move on, and just keep failing forward.
That's great advice. Learn how to pivot and be flexible. And everything is not what you assume for it to be. And as well, while you have time now, sleep. Because I don't sleep. I know you guys look tired too. Get your sleep now because you're not going to be sleeping.
I was up at 4 a.m. this morning.
Well, you have it there. If you're looking at becoming a micro cultivator and you're thinking about taking that path, put your big kid pants on and get ready for some rumble and tumbles. Thank you all for being with us. Thanks so much for this incredible conversation, for your energy, for what you're providing to the Canadian cannabis consumer. And thank you for all of the advice that you have been able to offer to other budding micros. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all for being on this panel, for saying yes.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
appreciate it, guys. Yeah, let's stay in touch.
Definitely.
Yes,
nice meeting you, Samantha.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you so much.